to take a video. Is this the only live mic for the...
No, they're going to use this for the speakers. If they need it more, they can use it.
Hello, everybody. We want to thank everyone for being out here in the heat. We want to thank everybody for coming together in this community to repudiate the hate we are hearing from this administration, to bring the love together, to listen to some music, to listen to some powerful activists in our community. And thank you for being here. We will move through this quickly. It's hot out there. We know it. Give someone next to you a hug, someone you don't know. Tell them you love them. Where'd Fernando go?
Gracias a todos por estar aquí. Miren, sabemos que es un día caliente, pero también sabemos lo que ha pasado en nuestra comunidad. Y por eso estamos aquí, con esa energía, y les damos las gracias por venir, porque hoy empieza a cambiar las cosas en El Paso y en el país.
We would like you to make the front area accessible for our ADA brothers and sisters, and we would also like to make sure you leave it accessible for our ASL folks. I am honored and amazed to welcome some of members of our spiritual community to help bring us here together. We have Father Robert Mosier and Ellen Goodman representing the Jewish community. Thank them for being here. No, those are live. Do I turn this on?
We stand in grief with the devastated families in our nation and in our community. We weep over the incomprehensible loss of life. We cry out with shock, confusion, and pain. We mourn together over this senseless act of violence and destruction. Be with us, God, in this time of sorrow and fear. Help us, God, to offer comfort to those whose hearts are shattered. Rekindle hope and trust and courage within us and them. Help us, God, to sustain our belief in the promise that even in the darkest times, even when we feel most discouraged, there is a reason to trust that love is never extinguished and that light and spirit will prevail. Help us, God, to rededicate ourselves to building a world that is safer for our children. Help us, God, to rededicate ourselves to building a world that is safer for all people. During these difficult days and nights, God, bring comfort and peace and hope and light to broken hearts and a broken world. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al.
Rise! And as we rise, the world will know that our rising is what defines our community. Our rising is what defines this country in this moment in history. Today, we must come together and say, Donald Trump, your hatred, your racism, and your bigotry are not welcome here. And most importantly, every day from today on, as a community, we must stand up to racism and bigotry and white supremacy when we see it show up in our community. Because we are as close to perfect as we can get, but we still have work to do. We must turn our grief into anger, and we must turn our anger into action. I love you so much, El Paso. I love you so much. Before I go, I'm going to read the list of the names of the people who were murdered, of the 22 people who were murdered because of a racist act of terrorism in our community. And after I read each name, I want you all to say, presente. Can you do that? Andre Anchondo. Presente. Jordan Anchondo. Presente. Arturo Benavides. Presente. Leonard Campos Jr. Presente. María Flores. Presente. Raúl Flores. Presente. Jorge Calvillo García. Presente. Adolfo Cieros Hernández. Presente. I'm gonna roll those R's too. Alexander Gerard Hoffman. Presente. David Johnson. Presente. Luis Alfonso Juárez. Presente. María Legarreta Roth. Presente. Elsa Mendoza de la Mora. Presente. Maribel Campos Loya. Presente. Ivan Manzano. Presente. Gloria Márquez. Margie Record. Presente. Sarah Regalado Moriel. Presente. Javier Rodríguez. Presente. Teresa Sánchez. Presente. Juan de Dios Velázquez Chaires. Presente. Our names are long, y'all. Angelica Englishby. Presente. Thank you.
And with those strong words spoken by Adri Perez, let's give him another round of applause. Applause, guys. Today, gathered here are multiple types of people. There are people who are sitting on that side, and I think they are the most important people at this moment. And then we also have amazing speakers here today, and we have people who will be sharing the gifts that they have, because sometimes the only thing that we can do are the things that are within our souls. And so up next, we have a musician. His name is Michael Anaya, who will be singing El Paso Strong. Please give him a warm welcome.
That's right. Before I play this song, I just want to start off by saying I wish there wasn't a reason to write this song. I wish I didn't have to write this song. I wish 23 innocent people were still alive today. I woke up Sunday morning with a broken heart and felt compelled to write a song for our city as a small way to show my support through lyrics and music. This is a tribute to the victims and their family and a message of peace, love, hope, and healing for our community, the city of El Paso. Tears in my eyes while I write this song. Starting to cry, I can barely sing along. Cielo Vista Mall, just shopping at Zoomies. Can't imagine what it's like to hear the sound of screams and shootings. Waking up with a broken heart. The day after the devil showed up at Walmart, taking the lives of innocent people. When in God's eyes we are created equal. Hating is hard, so very cruel. Breaking families apart while shopping back to school. In the Sun City, good people and bright smiles. It was not one of our own. He had to travel for hundreds of miles. This kind of hate, it doesn't exist in our border town. We stick together, we are the safest. Time heals our wounds, it won't take that long. Oh no, 'cause we are resilient and faithful, and Paso Strong. Try to tear us down, but we will recover as we stand together with our neighbors and love one another. The time is now to unite our culture, 'cause we are family. We're all sisters and brothers. We will rise and never fall. See through the lies, brick by brick, break down the wall. Now it's up to us to carry on with love in our hearts, 'cause we are El Paso Strong. 'Cause we are resilient and faithful, El Paso Strong. Sing it with me. El Paso Strong. El Paso Strong. El Paso Strong.
That was amazing. Let's give one more round of applause, guys. So before we continue with this, one of the most important things that we can do, as Adri was talking about earlier, is to act, right? Yes? Okay, so how many of us are registered to vote in this crowd? Awesome, awesome. If you are not registered to vote, and there's nothing wrong with that, it happens, okay? These tents over here are set up for you to register. So right now is the time to register, okay? So let's give it up for registering to vote, guys. Come on. It is only by registering to vote and casting your vote that we make true action, that we make actual changes, and our voices are not just lost in this chasm of darkness, okay? So up next, we have a speaker who's going to introduce another speaker. And these events cannot happen without groups of us getting together, correct? Yeah. So this gentleman here is part of the coalition that helped put today's event together. They've also helped put a lot of different events together, but especially today's. He is the Executive Director of Border Network for Human Rights. His name is Fernando Garcia. Can you please show him some love, El Paso?
Listen, we are still mourning. We're still thinking about our people, our families. And there are some clear messages that we need to send today. But before I continue, I want everybody that is holding a sign, raise your sign and face that sign towards the media that is back there. Show them what are your signs about. Today we came together for two main reasons. You know, the first one, we need to say it loud and clear, that El Paso is proud of what we are. We are a resilient community. Somos una comunidad que resiste. Y seguiremos resistiendo. Also, we need to say that El Paso will continue welcoming immigrants, refugees, and asylum seekers because that is our nature and is part of our history. And nobody's going to change that. The second thing is very important also, especially to the cameras. And I hope that Air Force One might have some of these cameras on. Trump, you are not welcome in this community. We should be very clear about this. You know, racism and xenophobia doesn't have a place here in El Paso. A few months ago, we saw the white supremacist militias, armed militias, that came to El Paso. And they told us that they were coming here responding to Trump's call to action to protect the nation from the invasion. You know, sadly, and I'm going to recommend this to you. You need to read that manifesto. I know that it's hard, but these terrorists wrote the same words that he was coming to El Paso to kill Hispanic because the invasion of Hispanics. But let me tell you one more thing. As we reflect on this, we remember those wars already. Somebody has been saying those wars. And those wars of invasion, of immigrants being criminals and rapists, they were coming from the White House and from the President of the United States. So listen, Trump is coming to tell us today here that the violence is due to video games, mental health. Let me say this, and we need to say it clear and loud. Trump is responsible and he is part of the problem. He is not welcome. Let me say this. Two evils came together, and those two evils were supported by Trumps. Weapons of war in our streets and white supremacists. And we need to say it again. Trump is responsible, and he must be accountable to this. Racism should be out of the White House. Let me then say, behind me, we have community immigrant leaders, líderes de la comunidad que han estado luchando con cada cosa que Trump nos ha mandado, la separación de niños, sus horribles muros, el mandar a refugiados a Juárez. Hemos resistido todo este tiempo. Y como organización somos familias. Y quiero presentar a alguien que es de nuestra familia, de la red fronteriza. I want to introduce Daisy Arbizo. She's a dreamer. She's a DACA recipient. She was inside the Walmart that day. And she wants to tell you her testimonial.
Hello, everyone. I just wanted to say that that experience there, it was horrible. And to know that what Trump started all this, to know that we are, that we are being targeted just for being Hispanics, that just makes me live in fear, you know? And I don't think anybody should be living in fear, especially right now that we're all mourning and Trump is here literally disrespecting everybody that was at Walmart and all the victims there just so that he can hide that he's the problem. And I'm just here to let everybody know that we need to stay strong. We're a beautiful community, and there's no reason to be scared.
Can we tell her that she's not alone? You are not alone. I want to say that to finish. I want to thank every organization that bring this event together. Our families, the members of Border Network for Human Rights, the March for Women, Veronica Escobar, our congresswoman that she's going to speak in a minute, and other leaders. So el Paso, stay strong, está firme el Paso. We will resist, we will not remain silent.
I think after hearing from Daisy, the mood is a little bit more somber. We did lose members of our community, our family, but we are all here to show that they are not alone. We are here to show them that no matter what, El Paso will stand with them. Will we stand with them, El Paso? So, up next, we have music to bring some peace to our souls. I'd like to welcome Christy Herola, and she will be singing Gracias a la Vida. Please give her a round of applause.
check 1, 2. ¿Sí? Gracias a la vida que me ha dado tanto, me dio 2 luceros que cuando los abro, perfecto distingo lo negro de blanco. En el alto cielo su fondo estrellado, en las multitudes el hombre que yo amo. Gracias a la vida que me ha dado tanto, me ha dado el lido que en todo su ancho graba noche y día, grillos y canarios, martillos, turbinas, ladridos, chubascos y la voz tan tierna de mi bien amado. Gracias a la vida que me ha dado tanto, me ha dado el sonido y al abecedario con las palabras que pienso y declaro. Madre, amigo, hermano y luz alumbrando, y la ruta del alma del que estoy amado. Gracias a la vida que me ha dado tanto, me ha dado la marcha de mi pie cansado. Con ellos anduve ciudades y charcos, playa y desiertos, montañas y llanos, y la casa tuya, tu calle y tu patio. Gracias a la vida.
Thank you so much, Chrissy. But guys, let's give Chrissy a round of applause. Love you too. So we all know that today El Paso is in the national spotlight, yes? So our media partners have asked that we lower our signs at times so that they can get shots of the speakers and the performers. Would that be all right with you? Thank you so much. Okay, now to move on, next we have Carlos Spector, who is an immigration attorney, but also the founder of Mexicanos en Exilio, who will be introducing the next speaker. Please give him a round of applause.
Thank you, thank you. How many of you have people that you've lost in Juárez or know someone who's been disappeared in Juárez? ¿Quién tiene gente en Juárez que desaparecieron o asesinaron o vinieron huyendo la violencia? Bastante. That's my point. Why did Trump target the borderlands in general and Mexicans specifically? Because he's a racist, but he wants to make a point. And the point is to disavow our history. The borderlands in El Paso has received Mexican exiles from before the Mexican Revolution to the present. And recently, we've had the horror of living across the river from one of the most dangerous cities while we're one of the safest. But the question is, where did those people go? Here in El Paso. And who received them? El Paso. And who will continue to receive them and other refugees? El Paso. And that's why they attacked us. Thousands came seeking refuge. We received them. I've represented over 100 families that have made a career of defending human rights activists from Mexico and reporters. But I also had the pleasure of dealing with individuals that came basically from El Valle de Juarez, who learned how to integrate themselves into the society and continue to debate what's happening in Mexico. And to that end, I want to introduce Saúl Reyes, who's one of the co-founders of Mexicanos en Exilio.
Buenos días a todos. Primero que nada, gracias por estar bajo el sol todo este tiempo, pero creo que vale la pena. Porque el Paso tiene que estar fuerte, tiene que estar firme. Soy Saúl Reyes Salazar, mexicano y refugiado en este país por la violencia que vivió México durante el sexenio de Felipe Calderón en contra de los periodistas, derechos humanistas y activistas políticos. Llegué hace 8 años a este lugar, a esta tierra, donde me abrieron los brazos, me abrazaron y hoy soy parte de la sociedad, de la comunidad del Paso, Texas, y me siento orgulloso de eso. Sus gritos y sus aplausos me dan mucho gusto porque sé que soy bienvenido. Hay gente que viene al Paso hoy y no es bienvenida. Pero claro que pensamos diferentes. Yo que llegué hace 8 años y quien viene hoy a traer su discurso de odio y de racismo, mismo que provoca en las mentes débiles crímenes como el del sábado en contra de la comunidad latina, en contra de todos nuestros hermanos, seres humanos, porque por el hecho de ser seres humanos somos todos hermanos. Represento al grupo de mexicanos en el exilio aquí en El Paso, Texas. Somos una comunidad que llegamos para trabajar, para pagar nuestros impuestos y para ser parte positiva de esta comunidad. Nos sentimos orgullosos de ser del Paso y de estar al lado suyo haciendo firme El Paso, Texas. Todos los mexicanos que nos refugiamos en El Paso vinimos y llegamos aquí porque no podíamos contener los sentimientos de persecución, de miedo, de temor, de zozobra que se vivía en México en ese tiempo. Nos acostumbramos a la paz, a vivir tranquilamente, pero a partir de este próximo sábado pasado, creo que en El Paso se respira el mismo ambiente de miedo, de temor y de zozobra que en México. No podemos permitir que eso siga avanzando. Tenemos que ser fuertes. Reciban todos ustedes un saludo de paz de parte de mexicanos en el exilio y un abrazo fraternal para el corazón. Gracias.
Thank you so much. One of the most amazing things about El Paso is that we are a multilingual community. So today, we hear from both speakers in English and in Spanish because it is one of our strengths. Too many times people think that speaking Spanish is something to be ashamed of. Is it something to be ashamed of? Oh, good. Exactly. Real quick, how many of you guys brought water to share today? No? It's okay. So we do have water available over on this end. So if anybody's too hot, don't get dehydrated. Please take care of yourselves today. Also, everybody stay away from these yellow lines, please. I would like to ask you to just stay away, give some space. Media as well. If you could, I know you can hear me. Media, if you could step back from that yellow line for me, that would be fantastic. And I was just told at the very back, there is a truck with free water. It is a white truck, so if you are thirsty, please go back there and get something to drink, okay? So up next, continuing with our theme of speakers and then music again, because music is something that's important to our soul, we have Javier Martinez, who will be singing Old Times. Please give him a round of applause.
Conversations never moved, but our stories always felt brand new. Talked about cigarettes, how it wouldn't hurt. Well, I could burn one down with you. Those days are through. I wish I could see you one more time. Life without you just don't feel right. One more sunrise, just like old times, just like old times. It's really important, guys, to love each other every day. Tomorrow isn't promised. Thank you.
Please, guys, give Javier a round of applause. And again, I know I've already said this, but those of you who are not registered to vote, today is an incredible day to do that. So please visit our tents over here. I see that they are busy, so that's phenomenal. So please, please, please register to vote. Can we get a round of applause for voting? Let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. All right, awesome. Up next, we have Sabrina Bustillos from the Texas Freedom Network. Please give her a round of applause.
Hi. Wow, this is so scary. So my name is Sabrina Bustillos, and I work as a community organizer for Texas Rising, and we're a part of the Texas Freedom Network. So we really just work on mobilizing and encouraging young people to get involved in politics. And honestly, when I was asked today to come talk about gun violence and talk about white supremacy and talk about all of these horrible things that have happened, I was at a complete loss for words, because how am I supposed to talk about and describe something that makes me feel super mad and super angry? But at the same time, looking at this community that's come together, there's like this sign of hopefulness. So it's this weird array of feelings, and I just really want to stress that there's a lot of ways to feel about this situation. But I'm hoping that aside from all of that, we can really break down things that matter and things that we can change in our community. There's honestly nothing that I can say that can take back like everything that's happened and everything that we've lost in this tragedy. But the only thing that we really can do is put all of those feelings into action moving forward. And I really want all of us to reflect on what got us here. We're all here building community and talking about what's happened. Because as of today, there's been more mass shootings in this country than days of the year. And that's really, really scary and sad. The fact that there hasn't been a single week without a mass shooting since 2013 is reflecting the fact that this gun control epidemic is an American issue. It's embedded in all of this American culture and this rallying behind Trump's rhetoric. At the end of the day, we're talking about gun control, but we're also talking about how white supremacy oftentimes uses artillery weaponry as a mechanism for hurting people and communities like us. We're talking about gun control, but we have to talk about the white supremacy that fuels that gun control. And how when we talk about change and when tragedies like this happen, we have Donald Trump and Ted Cruz and John Cornyn offering their condolences and even having the nerve to visit our city. When we're not holding them accountable for taking billions of dollars from the NRA, they are complicit in arming the person that did this. All of these condolences are amazing, and looking at all of you and some people that I go to school with and some people that I've met to volunteer with, it's amazing. But we have to take this energy and hold white supremacists and our elected officials accountable. Because it's oftentimes those same people who work together and perpetuate hatred like this. I'm sorry. The only thing at the end of the day, I can put all of my words and my thoughts into feelings. But all I'm asking you to do is take what you're feeling and actually make a change. Because accountability, although you might not feel like your votes matter, that's the only mechanism we have for checking individuals like Ted Cruz and John Cornyn who continue to advocate for artillery weaponry in these communities. Militarization does not work. Militarization makes us feel unsafe in our own home, which is exactly what happens at a fucking Walmart. I just want to say that I'm so fucking proud, but we shouldn't have to be brave and strong because this should have never happened. It's amazing to see that we have tents and people coming together to help rally you all for voting and volunteering. And we have some field organizers here wearing Texas Rising shirts that can help you do some voter pledges so we can call you and hold you accountable for going to the polls. Because we all have to check the role that we play in building this community and sustaining this community. And right now, I can definitely say the last thing that this community needs is armed militarization and weaponry and Donald Trump visiting fucking victims of something he caused. I'm feeling a lot, and I'm just gonna leave you with that because that's all that I can do. Like, as a human being, all I can do is talk to you all and try and encourage you. But now I'm leaving you with that. This is up to you, and it's up to all of us. So just, all I'm gonna say is, please, like, that's all I can say right now without crying. So thank you so much.
Guys, can we get another round of applause for Sabrina, please? It is that kind of passion that we need to show, El Paso. And I know I am preaching right now to the choir, but this is a national audience. That is the passion we need. This is our moment. This is our moment, guys. So let's put our signs back down. Thank you for that. Up next, we have Marisa Limon speaking with Hope Border Institute. Please give her a warm round of applause.
Buenas tardes, El Paso. My name is Marisa Limon Garza, and I am a proud daughter. Oh, a mestiza. I am also a fronteriza. Y también soy chicana. I've lived many places around this country, and there is no place like home. People get confused. They think we're this dusty community out in the desert Southwest, out on that river borderline somewhere, and they don't realize what we know in our hearts, what we know to be true, that El Paso is a community that values familia. And not just familia of a biological parent and a biological child. No, hombre. Para nosotros, familia es la comunidad entera. It's our vecinos, it's our tíos, it's the people in our church, it's the people at the supermarket. Este es una familia. So when someone came to our community and attacked our familias, it was an attack on all of us. And we take it personally. In those 22 people that were killed, in the people that are still fighting for their lives in the hospitals, for the Walmart employees that are dealing with the trauma, for the first responders that answered the call, for the journalists that captured the news, for everybody that has been on those lines, and all of us here, we have all been touched by this. And that will not be in vain. Blood was not spilt by accident, and we know that the man visiting our community today has made this possible. And we're not going to let that go by unrecognized, and that's why you're in part here today. But we have to know the racism, the xenophobia, the white supremacy is deadly. And as a borderland community, we've known that for a long time. For generations, we have been at the hands of that. Pero ¿sabes qué? Ya no, ya basta. No more. And if that means working with our elected officials, if that means some of y'all running for public office, if that means voting, if that means bringing our neighbors to the polls, then that's what we're going to do. Pero ¿sabes qué? Yes, the racism, the xenophobia, and the hatred existed long before the man visiting us today. And we can't get it twisted. It also lives in us. So our challenge is to look at our own racism, our own internalized oppression. How are we hurting one another just because it's what we know? How are we using the color of our skin to hurt one another? Our sexual orientations, our religious tendencies, our preferences, why? We have to search our hearts, transform them, and use this as a catalyst for change to be what this country needs, because what's happening is not working. So my commitment to you on behalf of the Hope Border Institute is to do this work. Thank you for the media for being here, but they're going to leave soon and cover a next story. And we will still be here. And we will still fight. And we will still resist for the El Paso that we know, the El Paso that we love, and what this country can be when fronterizos like you and me are together, united in the fight. So we cry our tears, we mourn the dead, We lick our wounds, but we come back, heads up, chest forward, con orgullo, con presencia, con fuerza, porque nosotros somos el Paso. ¡Que viva el Paso! ¡Que viva el Paso! ¡Que viva el Paso!
What an amazing way to end that speech. Let's do it one more time, guys. Que viva el Paso! So, just a real quick, I know I keep doing this, but how many, everybody raise up your waters. I want to see your waters. Waters. Okay, there's a lot of you that do not have water. It is incredibly important. How many, you guys know, this is El Paso. Go get water, stay hydrated, okay? And then still keep going to vote, all right? So up next, we're getting there, I promise. But up next, we have what amounts to a local legend. We have another musician who will be singing Our Town. I'm going to introduce him, but you already know his name, Jim Ward. Please give him a round of applause.
It's okay to cry. I've seen the palaces, the countrysides of England, been the four of the seven seas, a product of my dreaming. I walk the neon streets of Tokyo on my own. And at the end of every trip I turn around and come home to the valley on the shores of the Rio Grande. And I love these people, and I love this land. Born and raised here, 5 generations deep. And this is my town, El Paso, and the home I keep in my heart. Everywhere I go, it's in my heart. Everywhere I go. I fell in love, got married, and I spent my life here, and I guarantee we'll carry on. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Now let's just try and whatever. This shit hurts. All right. I want to introduce a good friend of mine and a great El Pasoan and a good human being, Mr. Beto O'Rourke.
Thank you for being here for El Paso, or Ciudad Juarez, for being here. Can I get a, here we go, for being here. Sorry, this one doesn't work either. Yeah, check. Oh, man, come on. We got it? For being here for this big, beautiful, binational community. At a time that we are under attack, we are told to remain silent. We are standing up, loud and proud to be counted with our fellow Americans as the best example of this country after one of the worst disasters she has ever seen. Les ofrecemos nuestro más sentido pésame a la comunidad de El Paso, también a la comunidad de Ciudad Juárez, a las víctimas, a sus familias y a este país en este momento tan importante. While we grieve and think about those families who have suffered something that is unimaginable to so many before Saturday, as we are with them to give them strength and courage and to fortify them in the days ahead, I want us to remember at the end of the day just who we are. Yesterday we were at Del Sol Medical Center meeting with some survivors of the shooting from Saturday. People who are still not yet out of the woods, folks who have survived grievous injuries, shot in the chest, shot in the stomach, hanging on in some cases for dear life. And around them, literally physically present, were their families. We visited the family of Tank from Horizon, Tanque. 20 family members there from all over the community, spending day and night and day and night eating the pizza and the donuts that you all are sending in to Del Sol right now. All of the strength that he could possibly need at this moment of truth for him. And we had a chance to thank the doctors and the surgeons and the nurses and the cleaning staff. The nurses told us as they wheeled these victims into the trauma bay, blood everywhere. They'd wheel one patient out, that cleaning staff would come in like a NASCAR pit crew and clean that bay down so it was clean for the next patient to come in so they could save somebody else's life. Every single one of them in that hospital. And they did the same thing at University Medical Center, doing all that they could for their fellow El Pasoans, for their fellow Juarenses, for their fellow human beings. And they saved their lives. And one of those surgeons, Dr. Smith, said, this is one of those moments that either destroys your faith in humanity or restores your faith in humanity. El Paso chooses to restore our faith in humanity, in one another and in this country. And I could not be more proud. All over this country, we tell our story. This beautiful, safe community this beautiful community of immigrants and asylum seekers and refugees the world over. A quarter of those with whom we live were born somewhere else. And they chose us. They left their home, their family, their country to start anew here in El Paso, Texas. And their very presence has made us strong, has made us successful, and has made us one of, if not the safest cities in the United States of America. And we don't just preach it, we act on it. When we learned that kids were being torn from the arms of their parents after they had traveled 2,000 miles, fleeing the deadliest places anywhere on planet Earth, to arrive here seeking shelter and safety and refuge, to instead be met by their worst nightmare. That child torn from the breast of his mother, that mother deported back to the very country from which she fled, that child placed in a cage and then sent to a tent camp that they called Tornillo. You showed up, more than 1,000 strong, within 24 hours of receiving the news, making sure that those kids in those tents knew that we were there, and we were going to do everything we could to make sure that they rejoined their families, that we shut that tent city down, and the people of El Paso and Ciudad Juarez, we shut that tent city down. When those asylum seekers showed up, penniless, defenseless, scared, strangers in a strange land, you, Annunciation House, Las Americas, Border Network for Human Rights, this community came together, and though we may on paper financially be one of the poorest counties in the United States, we came together in an embarrassment of riches and provided those families not only shelter, but food and clothing and medication, and more importantly than anything else, the love and compassion and empathy of this community. That is El Paso at its best. But we learned that no matter how special we are, no matter how distant we are from the rest of this country, we are still connected. Martin Luther King Jr. reminded us that all of us, each of us, and together as a country, are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. So though we may be safe, and though we may cherish the fact that we are a community of immigrants, we live in a country that is not safe, that refuses to pass laws to end gun violence in the United States. We live in a country where we have a president who demonizes communities like this one, who vilifies immigrants, who says that those from Mexico are rapists and criminals, and warns of invasions and infestations. And so no matter how special we are, we cannot separate ourselves from the rest of this country. And at one point or another, and for us it was on Saturday, that violence and that intolerance and that inaction in the face of violence and intolerance will find us. And it did. And it took the lives of our fellow El Pasoans and Juarezes. So here is my message to you and to this country at this moment. Though we bore the brunt of this hatred and this racism and this intolerance and this violence, I believe that this community also holds the answer, not just for El Paso, but for a country that has never been more divided or more highly polarized. The way that we welcome one another and see our differences not as disqualifying or dangerous, but as the very source of our strength, as the foundation of our success, that needs to be the example for the United States of America today. And so I ask you, to make sure that those murders, that act of terror, not define this community or this country in this moment. Instead, it is the way that you have chosen to come together right now under this beautiful sky, in this beautiful community, with these beautiful people, to transcend that hatred and that violence and to show America a better path. El Paso, I am proud of you. El Paso, I love you. El Paso, we are bigger and better and greater than this. Nos vemos y gracias. Thank you, El Paso.
All right, guys, let's give one more round of applause for Beto. Now, we've had a few speakers in between the last time you and I met, and one of the biggest things is that all of this media will leave after today, but we will still be here, right? Yes. And we are El Paso Strong, right? Let me hear you say it. We are. And we will fight together because we are. Thank you so much. Up next. This rally that we have is more about all of the people out there than it is the people on this stage. So when you chant, I will be quiet because this is your space to speak as well. Up next, what we have are elected officials who will come and stand behind one of El Paso's own. Is she done with her interview? I will not announce her title. I will not announce any of that for her today because at the end of the day, we are all El Pasoans, correct? So please, please, please give a warm round of applause for Veronica Escobar.
Mi comunidad querida, I love you. I love you so much. I love you so much. Les quiero dar las gracias. Thank you so much. Tenemos tanto amor aquí en abundancia. This community is an abundance of love. And it's all of you who create that, who give it, who share it so freely, who make us so proud to live in this beautiful binational border community. I am a proud fronteriza because of you. Proud fronteriza because of you. I want to introduce some people who traveled a long way to get here with us. I want you to meet Deb Holland, the first Native American woman in the U.S. Congress. I want you to meet Chuy Garcia, who came here all the way from Chicago, the first immigrant elected in Illinois. My colleagues came here to be with all of you. They came here to be with all of us. And on the stage, we have our local elected officials, and I'm only going to introduce them by name since we're honoring the idea that we are all people, equal, regardless of title. Actually, I'm going to give you the mic. I want you to introduce yourselves.
Hi, El Paso. I'm Alexandra Anello. We love you. Good afternoon, everybody. Cassandra Hernandez.
Buenas tardes todos. Yo soy David Stout. I am El Paso proud and strong. Lina Ortega, proud to represent you.
I'm Cesar Blanco, representing Washington Park. I'm Joe Moody. My heart is El Paso.
Viva El Paso! Mary Gonzalez from the Lower Valley!
What up, Chuco? I'm Peter Schwartzman, the City Council representative for District 1. I love each and every one of you. Love and light. Vámonos!
And I want to introduce, I'm going to let her introduce herself, a warrior and a champion.
Thank you. My name is Gina Ortiz-Jones. El Paso, you are inspiring. I would be honored to represent the Texas's 23rd Congressional District.
You all, let me tell you why we are here together and what inspired bringing all of us together. We know that we have a long journey ahead together, and we will have a lot of work to do that is not just about repairing the body, but also about repairing the mind and the soul. And we have to be strong and united in that journey, that very difficult journey that lies ahead. And in this moment, someone is visiting that I felt it was important that we come together and not focus on the visitor, but focus on El Paso. And let me tell you why this moment is so important, not just for this community, but for this country. There have been words that have been used to dehumanize all of us, our brothers, our sisters, our friends, our family, our communities. There have been words that have been powerful and painful and full of hate and full of bigotry and full of racism. And those words are still out there. And until all of us demand that those words be taken back, we will not stop. We will not stop resisting the hate, resisting the bigotry, resisting the racism. This country has had a long and painful journey with racism. And it is only when we stand and we recognize one another for being human beings worthy of dignity, worthy of grace, worthy of love. Only when we recognize that in every person, regardless of color, regardless of gender, regardless of who you love, or whether you were born on this side or that side of the river, we will not have redemption until we do that. And this community in this moment and going forward, we are going to do what we have always done. We are going to lead the way, and we're going to lead the way with love. We're going to lead with love. And you all have been so patient, standing in the sun, sharing your umbrellas, using your signs as shade, and so I'm going to cut it short. I am just here to tell you that I am ready to stand with you as we say no to hate, no to bigotry, no to racism, and yes to love, yes to love, yes to love, yes to love. I love you, El Paso. I love you. I love you.
Thank you, elected officials. Thank you, Veronica. And let's repeat that one more time. Yes to love, guys. Yes to love. Yes to love. Yes to love. Yes to love. Get the signs up. Get the signs up. Yes to love. Yes to love. Come on, guys. And I know it's been a long, hot day, guys. You can put them down, put them down. It's been a long, hot day. Thank you for being here. And I know it's difficult. I hear Tucson is here with us today, guys. We are not alone, El Paso. The nation is with us. So, up next, we have Raneem Karbouji. And feel free to join her if you so wish as she brings together a prayer for our community. Please give her a round of applause.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Raneem Karbouji, and if you want to get in a position that you're most comfortable praying with. So I'll start it off in Arabic at the opening chapter of the Quran, and then go ahead and into English. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. So it translates as, in the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful. Praise be to God, the cherisher and the sustainer of the worlds, most gracious, most merciful. Master of the day of judgment, thee do we worship and thine aid we seek. Show us the straight way, the way of those on whom thou hast bestowed thy grace, those whose portion is not wrath and those who not go astray. Thank you. In the Quran, it states that one who kills one innocent person, it's as though they've killed all of mankind. And one who saves one person, it's as though they've saved all of mankind. So I'll just lead us into a few more words to hopefully inspire us into being the change to save people. We ask the most gracious, the most merciful to bestow upon his grace and mercy. We ask the utterly just to guide us to justice and to be the tools to be advocates for justice to this community, to this nation, and to the whole world. We ask the protector to protect this community and bless us and to be in positions to protect others. We ask the wise to bless and guide us into understanding his infinite wisdom. We ask the all praiseworthy to bless us to continue to praise him despite our confusion and despite our pain as we grieve through this attack on our community. We ask the ever-living to give us the gift of honoring the lives of those who've passed every day from this point onward. And we ask for those who are in the hospital. We ask the light to fill our hearts and souls with light. And we ask the ultimate guide to guide our hearts and, more importantly, to guide our actions, that we make a stand to never let this happen again. And to hold our electeds accountable, but more importantly, to hold ourselves accountable and making a difference and making a change so that we never have to hear another city is strong because of this tragedy. In conclusion, I'd like to introduce Bishop William J. Barber II. I'm so humbled to lead this community prayer with you all, and I'm super honored to be standing in support. Most recently, Bishop Barber was here in El Paso for the Moral Monday, which was just over a week ago. He's the national president of Repairs of the Breach and the co-head of the Poor People's Campaign. Bishop Barber.
The Bible says in Jeremiah chapter 7 that a nation is only an honored nation when it does justice to the immigrant, cares for the children, and makes sure that it takes care of the poor. Nearly 7 days ago, we came from all over the country by invitation to stand with you, and I want all the folk, the Border Network, to come close. We were here Jewish, Muslim, Christian, Hindu, and Unitarian. And then we got the word. We got the word that this ugly death had taken place, and all of these killings that are yet rising. And it broke our hearts, and we declared that we are all El Paso. The whole nation must be El Paso. And we know that even before the shooting and the terroristic act, there was the political violence where we had normalized and demonized the lives of immigrants. And it's being promulgated and promoted from the White House to the Congress, to the State House, and even in pulpits. Under this administration, in visceral and vicious ways, overt attacks on immigrants and people of color have been verbalized and concretized in ways that we have not seen since Operation Wetback in 1954, when another president did the same thing, and since the days of Jim Crow. Even before the killings, children, women, mothers, and fathers are being caged like animals and dying and being treated worse than some people treat their own dogs. And somebody said to me in the day in America that while we're coming out now, many of us around this country have to repent that there was not even a greater outpouring at just the one death of a child. But now we're here. People have been dying physically, dying spiritually. White supremacy and racism, from voter suppression at the ballot box to Charlottesville in the park, to El Paso on the border, on the internet, and through executive orders. The legacy of white nationalism and white supremacy and racism is with us. And it's with us here with unabashed leadership. And we must confront it now. And like Jeremiah also said about Rachel in the Bible, when her children died, it said Rachel refused to be comforted. Rachel mourned and said, I will not be comforted this time easily. I'm not going to just be comforted in 2 days or 2 weeks. No, this time I must mourn deeply. I must cry deeply. My mourning and my deep tears must lead me into a resistance that lasts until racism is over. And we must know, and I was sharing this with Brother Fernando, that there are 3 dimensions of racism and white nationalism. First, there are the words of white nationalism and racism. Then there is the works of nationalism and racism. That's the policies. And then there's the war of white nationalism, which is the violence. Violence has always been a part of white nationalism. When Richard Spencer, who organized the Charlottesville March, who's a white nationalist, he said the reason he was drawn to Trump because he spoke the words of white nationalism. And white nationalists believe that the first war they have to wage is the war against immigrants, because that's where it started. The truth of the matter is, our Mexican and Latino brothers and sisters from Guatemala and Honduras, they aren't crossing the border crossed them. Texas was your land. California is your land. And why was it taken? Over slavery. When Mexico decided to be a non-slave country, and people in this country wanted to keep slavery, and they invaded. And the first marks of civil disobedience by Henry David Thoreau and Abraham Lincoln were over the wrong that was being done to the people of Mexico. We got to tell the truth. The words and the works of racism, white nationalism has always spawned and inspired the war and the violence of white nationalism. The words, that's the verbal part of it. The work is policy violence. The word is verbal violence, and the war is the physical violence. And this is why we can never accept racism and white nationalism as a normalized thing in America anymore. Let me give you a historical note. In 1963, the year I was born, George Wallace promoted the words of white nationalism and the works of white nationalism. By the end of the year, 4 girls were blown up in the church because his words and his works loosed the violence of racism. 1 week before those girls were blown up in the church, he was asked, how do we stop the civil rights movement? He said, well, maybe if we have a few first-class deaths, we can stop the civil rights movement. My brothers and sisters, this has always been the way of white nationalism. And for someone to try to make this an anomaly, just to say it's just one person, we have to resist that. It's not just how people were killed and not what killed them, but what created the environment to loose the violence in the first place. And we cannot be comforted by easy answers. This is a long history. In Memphis in 1866, the words and the work of white nationalism and racism led to 46 black people being killed and 2 whites being killed and 75 blacks being injured and 5 black women being raped. In 1898, in my state of North Carolina, the words of racism and the works of racism led to the war of white nationalism. And by the time November 10th, 1898 was over, they brought a Gatling gun into Wilmington, 400 personal guns, and the deaths totaled nearly 60 blacks were killed and 2,000 refugees were created. In 1906, there were the Atlanta riots in September. And the words of racism and the works of racism led to the violence. 25 to 100 African Americans were killed. In 1921 in Tulsa, Oklahoma, the words of racism and the works of racism led to the war of racism and white supremacist violence. And between May 31st and June 31st, 1,200 homes were destroyed. 6,000 African Americans were imprisoned. And let us not forget how the words and the works of racism and white nationalism led to the war and the violence and the terrorism against First Nation and Indian people in this nation. We must address the cause of these mass killings, not just how and who, because people were dying from racism. They were dying, whether they die from the noose, the gun, the bomb, or being locked up and not fed, or die in the river. The works of war of white nationalism and violence always leads to death. And we must tell the truth about it. And yet what we see is, as I conclude, we're in a war of worlds, if you will. That's why we've got to say from here, remember El Paso. And it's got to be a rallying cry around this nation. We're in a fight for the life of this democracy. We're in a fight for the soul of this nation. There are those that are scared of the 20 years from now when there'll be no clear majority, that there'll be no clear white majority, that we all gonna have to learn to get along together. And Trump didn't create racism and white nationalism. It's as American as apple pie. But what he did was he called the fire from up under the earth. He sowed to the wind, and now we're reaping the whirlwind. He and his enablers, whether they be Senate Leader McConnell or Lindsey Graham, they have blown on the smoldering coals of racism and called the fire. Our politicians have called the fire. Some preachers in the state of Texas that have consecrated and agreed with all of this racism against immigrant people, they've called for the fire. Racism and white nationalism is always smoldering under the surface of our democracy. They've called the fire. They've called the fire, and now children die. And Trump and his enablers. But we must remember this as I close. Racism and white nationalism have been a part of this nation from its beginning. It has always resulted in some form of violence. But there has also been another fire. Not the fire of destruction, but the fire of love, and the fire of truth, and the fire of justice. And we must turn loose this fire now. We must take our tears into the street, our mourning into the street, in nonviolent ways. And we must say, we will not accept this. And this movement must be fusion. It can't be brown alone. It can't be black alone. It can't be white alone. It's got to be red and yellow and black and brown, all of us, and gay and straight and young and old. We can't just have Latinos and people of color challenging systemic racism and white nationalism. We have to have white people as well standing beside and challenging the works of racism, the words of racism, and the war of racism. And we have to do it now, and we must do it together. Moral fusion, white, black, and brown, and red, and Asian together, and we must denounce all of it. Denounce the words, denounce the works, and denounce the violence. We must denounce it. And you understand what white nationalism agenda is. Mistreatment of immigrants, Brother Fernando, is white nationalism. Voter suppression is white nationalism. Saying that all poverty is because of black people and brown people, that's white nationalism. Resegregation of our schools is white nationalism. Mass incarceration is white nationalism. Not making sure that everybody has health care has some white nationalism in it. Believing that everybody got to have a gun and an assault weapon grows out of white nationalism. Continuing to oppress our Indian brothers and sisters is white nationalism. And so we must say, in this moment, if politicians call this shooter sick and senseless, but refuse to call their own racist rhetoric and racist policies sick and senseless, then what they're saying is nothing but outrage. That is nothing but sound and fury signifying nothing. We must say, when they say there's a mental illness, yes, there is a mental illness. There is a mental illness attached to the shootings. It is the insanity of trying to argue that white supremacist words and white supremacist policies against Latino immigrants by the president and his enablers have nothing to do with the violence. That is insanity. We must say that Trump denounced the white supremacy of the man who perpetrated the violence in El Paso, but said nothing of his own. That's like Dr. Jekyll helping to create the monstrous activity and then saying, I don't know who Mr. Hyde is. We must say every time America has done this, it's wrong. It was wrong 55 years ago with Operation Wetback, and it's wrong to 55 years later. We must be together. And we must continue to confront. If it means laying down our bodies, we got to confront it. We got to pick up brotherhood and sisterhood. Put down racism. If it means marching on the ballot box, we got to confront it. If it means holding together, hands in the hot sun, we've got to. If we have to take buses from El Paso to Washington, D.C., we got to confront it. We got to expose the lies and the mythology of white supremacy and racism until it is no más. No more. We got to do it until our children are safe, until our people are safe, until there's no more killing. And so I come today to tell you that people all over the country, the Poor People's Campaign, are hooking up with you. We've decided that around September, it's time to have a national We Will Do More tour. We will do more. More stands for mobilizing, organizing, registering, and educating. This cannot be a 2-week period of crying. We must make this nation cry until this nation changes. And not only are we calling for a tour, we're saying on June 20th of next year, we need to have a mass Poor People's Assembly and moral march on Washington and demand that systemic racism, systemic poverty, ecological devastation, the war economy, militarization, and the false narrative of religious nationalism be challenged with everything we have. And I just came by to tell you all, that we want, if you all allow it, it's up to you. But if you all allow it, we want to start the More Tour right here in El Paso. And we want to start it on the same weekend that those 4 little girls were bombed in Birmingham. And remember the spirit of those people that didn't give up then. And we want to connect that spirit to this spirit. And we want to move from the street to the congressional suite, to the pulpit, to the ballot box, because the people who fought before us, they are dead and gone. But we are their children. And it's time for us to declare that America may not have been America to us, but we swear this oath that America will be. Is there anybody at this rally? Is there anybody online that will say, I refuse to go quiet? I refuse to just mourn for a week and go back to normal. The Bible says, blessed are they that mourn. Let's make this nation mourn until this nation changes, until there is a new morning. When we get up in the morning and we're holding hands together and we say to racism and white nationalism, no mas, no mas, no mas, no mas, no mas.
Thank you all for having stayed here this long. I know it's incredibly difficult and it's